Sit down, young cub, and listen as I speak to you this tale of the Get of Fenris. This legend of the weakness of Uli Brightjaws. There once was a son of Fenris who called himself weak. His name was Uli Brightjaws, and it was not a name he'd earned from his brothers and sisters. The elders had given him the name Uli Brightjaws upon his proving right, for he had been bloodied and yet remained fair and unblemished of face. Uli was a faithful warrior to his tribe and his sept. When battle came to threaten his home, Uli stood beside his brothers and sisters to crush the invaders. When the elders asked his pack to go hunt the bastard spawn of the worm in their dark places, Uli was as fierce as any of his packmates. He fought many battles, and his claws ran with the poisonous blood of his foes. And in no battle were his enemies able to mar his face, for he took no wound there that did not heal without scarring. His packmates laughed at that, and said he was well named, and they praised his skill. But when he lay beside his wife at night, Uli Brightjaws remained awake as she slept, and he stared upward into the dark, and he said to himself, "I am weak." This is what filled the days and nights of Uli Brightjaws. When his pack made a kill that brought them glory, Uli quietly went over the battle in his head, and decided that his part in the victory was the least part. When Uli's flesh was torn, he gritted his teeth at the pain, and he thought to himself that surely his packmates felt their own wounds less than he did. Every day he saw something that made him more convinced that his strength was not what it should be, and every night he lay awake, wondering how much longer it would be before his weakness was the death of his pack, or even his entire sept. Finally, Uli resolved himself to do something about it. He went before his Jarl, and he made proper deference, and he said, "Master, I am not as strong as great Fenris demands of us. I feel it in my heart that I will fail you when the need is greatest, and I cannot live with this knowledge. I beg of you to let me go into the spirit world, where I can confront myself and wrestle the weakness out of me." The Jarl frowned at him. "Go into the Umbra, without your pack. Is this idea of your own making, Uli Brightjaws?" "It is. With my pack I can depend on their strength, and my weakness will hide from me. Without my pack it will become stronger and braver, and then I can face it and kill it." The Jarl growled, and shifted in his seat, and then looked over at the wise old Godi that stood in attendance. The elder crescent moon hummed to herself, and rubbed the string of runestones that hung around her neck, and finally nodded. "So be it," rumbled the Jarl. "You have the turn of one moon to make this thing right within you, Uli Brightjaws, although I have only your word that you have as great a need as you say. Leave on the night of the new moon, tomorrow, and return before the moon is new again." Uli knelt and bowed his head, and he returned home to his family. He ate with them, and he wrestled with his children, and he did not burden them with this news. That has never been the way of the Fenrir. In the night he whispered in his wife's ear, "I must go again." And she did not reply with words, but instead said farewell to him, as husband and wife do. He made ready for his journey on the next day, selecting what few things he might need but would not find along the way, and binding them to his spirit form. He ate the final meal with his family, and he stepped out the door, but his wife and children came after him. "Husband, where is your pack?" his wife asked. "Why do they not meet you here?" Uli felt the pain in his heart, but he answered, "I go without my pack. I go into the spirit world." "Why?" asked his wife in a whisper. "You have never done this thing before, and your pack is strong and healthy." "I am sorry, wife of my heart, mother of my children, but I must leave because I am weak." "Who said such a thing?" spat his wife. "Who would dare lie in such a way? Husband, you should catch the man who slanders you and tear his skin from his body. It is no slander, Uli told his wife. It is no lie. The weakness is real, and I feel it clutching at my insides by day and by night. I must go into the spirit world, where all things are made solid. And if I am lucky, I will find it there, and I can kill it. Then I will be able to come home again, and to be a husband you can take pride in. Tears ran down the face of Uli's wife, and they melted the snow where they fell. She bit her lip until the blood ran, but she said nothing more, for it was not the place of kin to question Fenrir, not even their own mates. Uli kissed his wife, and let her hot tears remain on his cheeks while he kissed his children goodbye, and then he turned and walked down the road without looking back. Perhaps Uli Brightjaws knew exactly when he crossed over into the spirit world. Perhaps he was lost in his thoughts and never saw the boundary. But under the light of the moonless sky he leapt the stream and came down in the other world. He walked for a time in the spirit world, and then he stood on a hill and looked off into the soft reaches of forever, and he listened. He heard nothing. I have a long way to go yet, said Uli Brightjaws, and he started down the hill. Uli walked for several days, drinking from the pure streams of the spirit world, for his was a time when the pure was still strong, and the polluted was not yet ascendant, and eating what game he could catch. The spirit animals nourished his spirit body, and he remained healthy. Sometimes he would stand under a tree or on another hill, and he would listen, and still he heard nothing. Then he came across a place where the paths forked. The path that ran off to the right was bright with luminous light, which shone on every stone. The path that ran off to the left was darker, more shadowed, and it wound back and forth on into the gloom, and Uli could not tell where it would end. And Uli Brightjaws chose the left path. He knew he had made the right choice almost immediately. Soon he was out of sight of the fork in the path, with dimness before him and after him, and he said to himself, "Now surely my weakness will find me on this road." So he walked on, and he did not pause to listen quite so often. But of course, one's inner flaws are not the only things to wait for a traveler on such a road. As Uli walked farther along the path, the more the green seemed to leave the trees and bushes that dotted the stones around him. Many were dead. Not dead of poison or lightning strikes, but dead from a low, grey death, as though they had simply decided to stop living. That caught at Uli, and he felt doubt. For any Get of Fenris fears losing the love of his life, and worse, dying uselessly. And as Uli paused on his journey to look at one of these trees, and wonder if he would himself die in such a fashion, something came out from the darkness under its roots, and tried to fasten itself on Uli Brightjaws. It was a crawling thing, shivering and wet as if fresh from a polluted eggshell, or beneath a rotten stone. It was a spite grub that had yet to spin its cocoon and hatch again, stronger than before. It could not form words, only a rattling shriek that was full of stolen grief and pain. Uli saw it and leapt back, and in that moment he knew it for what it was. It was here to feed upon the dread he felt when he looked at the trees. It was drawn to him. Uli took on his warskin, and he seized the thing in his claws, and he tore it in 2 pieces. Its death shriek was choked with pain and threaded with a faint skein of victory and release. Uli dropped the halves of the thing and said to himself, "This puny thing cannot have been my weakness. This was one of the enemy's parasites." But even the lowliest, most petty of the worm's servants can learn the virtues of traveling in packs. They came from beneath shadows and between stones, leaping and slithering at Uli all at once. There was nothing of the human nor the animal in their eyes, only a hunger that burned to consume Uli's suffering. They came seeking pain, misery, fear, hatred, all those things that feed their kind, and Uli knew that he could not outrun so many. But more, he felt a great revulsion for the wretched things, and he knew he could not leave these things whole. Uli Brightjaws carried no weapon with him. He had no family heirloom, and a mortal sword or axe would have been less use than his own good claws and teeth. But against so many, claws and teeth were less than effective. So he leapt off the path to where one of the dead trees stood, and calling on the might of Fenris, he tore the tree out of the ground. Then he was well and truly armed. Each downward strike smashed several ground crawlers to jelly. He ran and leapt, the tree in his arms, swinging as he went. Before long those that did not lay broken on the ground had fled. Uli took a great round stone and rolled it back and forth over the banes that lay on the ground, and soon there was nothing left of them but bile and smoke. Then he walked down the path for a hammer's throw, and sat on a rock and rested. And in the quiet he listened, and he heard something. He heard the soft footfalls of something that walked perhaps on 2 legs, perhaps on 4, and it was still a long way from him yet. He walked on. The stones surrounding the path grew rougher and sharper as Uli continued on his journey, and the trees and bushes became fewer and farther apart. Great clouds obscured the light of Luna, and Uli's way was lit not by silver, but by a deepening grey. But the path itself remained smooth. It was easy to walk, as it wound ever so slightly downward to the gloom beyond. Uli noted each landmark as he passed it, and slept lightly, but the crawling things that lived in the deepest shadows did not trouble him. And then, in the twilight between night and morning, or perhaps between evening and night, Uli came upon a great tree. The tree grew from a stone the size of a ship, its roots burrowing deep into the grey rock. It would have been tall had it stood straight, but it was bent and hunched, with not a leaf in its branches, and yet for all that, it seemed strong as any living oak, as if it had fed on the strength of the stone, and made that strength its own. In the branches of the tree sat 2 ravens, each as large as a dog. Uli knew the laws of the spirit world. This was no accident. So he walked under the tree, and nodded his head to the ravens in respect. The raven on the left spoke, and its voice was like cracking icicles falling to stone. "Where are you going, Uli Brightjaws? You are far from home." "I am seeking something," Uli replied. The raven on the right spoke, and its voice was like brittle leaves on a cold wind. "What are you seeking, Uli Brightjaws? It must be something important." Uli did not care for the tone of the ravens, but he remembered the old pacts between Fenris and Hrafn. And more, he knew that if he did not speak plainly with them, they would worry at him wherever he went, until they were satisfied they knew his business. Such is the raven's way. "I am looking for my own weakness." Both ravens shared the cackle. "No wonder you walk away from your tribe then," said the one on the left, "for they walk away from their weakness and towards their strength." "Still," said the one on the right, "perhaps you are doing the right thing. If you carried your weakness with you and could not set it down in the realm of flesh, perhaps here you can outrun it." "I am not some jackal wolf that would hide from my weakness," Uli growled. "I intend to find it here and kill it." Both ravens laughed like cracking bones. "Do you think it will be that easy?" cackled the raven on the left. You are no stronger here than you were before. If you could defeat it with your strength, purred the raven on the right, you would have done that long ago. You need another way to overcome yourself, Uli Brightjaws. You need wisdom. If you are willing, Uli Brightjaws, we will share our secrets with you. The ravens puffed out their coats and shifted from foot to foot on the branches. But Uli looked at them, and the blood of Fenris shone in his gaze. Why do you wait for my permission to advise me? Are you not children of Hrafen, who are free and generous with your secrets? The raven on the left muttered to itself. The raven on the right remained silent. Then they spoke, sharp and soft. There are rules. There is a price. Uli said nothing. Hang yourself from this tree, said the raven on the left, its voice low and its eyes half-lidded. Hang yourself here. We will sit above you and pull at your flesh, said the raven on the right, serpent-voiced. And in return, we will tell you many things. Things that will make you wise. Things that will make you strong. A green light, cold as the bottom of a forgotten pond, glittered in their eyes. Uli Brightjaws growled, and the rage rose within him. You are no ravens, he said. Of course we are ravens, said the one on the left. We bring wisdom. We must be ravens, said the one on the right. We learn secrets from dead men. Wotan had creatures that he called ravens too, said Uli, and his voice was low and grim. I know you. I do not think you do, said the one on the left, and its eyes glittered like emeralds caught in ice. Perhaps instead you know our forefathers' names, said the one on the right, snapping its beak. We are their children. We are their heirs. And both ravens leaned forward on the tree, their feathers bunching outward, and they were nearly the size of the Hispo wolf. You are abominations, growled Uli. You are betrayers and corpse splitters, the carrion wings. You are the bastards cast out by Hrafen. You are the birds that pick at the serpent's hide. We are what we are, Uli Brightjaws. We are your doom. They came at him out of the tree, swift as arrows. Uli was in his warskin as quick as an eye blink, but they sliced open his pelt with rakes of their wings, each feather a razor blade. He snapped and clawed at them, but they were quick like no mortal bird, and his teeth and talons closed on empty air. They laughed their bone laughs again as they circled above him, and they laughed as they dove at him a second time, and more blood ran down his arms and legs. They were still laughing as they dove a third time. Then his hand closed around the neck of the first. It beat at him with its wings, more powerful than the hooves of a great horse, and its feathers sliced his flesh until the blood ran. But Uli did not let go. It tried to scream out to its sibling, but Uli's iron grip strangled its cry in his throat, and it could do nothing. The second raven dove down on Uli then like a thunderbolt falling on a mountain. But a thunderbolt cannot strike a mountain low, and the raven could not strike down a Get of Fenris. Its beak sank deep into the meat of Uli's shoulder, but Uli reached out with his other hand and caught the second raven by the neck. It, too, beat at him with its powerful wings and slashed him with its dagger-sharp feathers, but Uli did not let go. He strode over to the stone that supported the raven's tree, and he dashed both their heads against the rock, breaking their skulls open and spilling out their brains. Then he hung the bodies of the ravens in the tree, and he hastened from that place. And although he saw nothing, he heard the soft pad of feet that followed him. There were no more trees after that. There were no more bushes, no more animal spirits, nothing left that lived. Uli drank sparingly from the streams that sometimes trickled among the rocks, but the taste was flat and wrong. as if it was trying to be bitter but lacked the strength. Still, he moved onward. He felt that if he turned and walked back, there was a chance that the thing that followed him would flee. Instead, walked forward, in the hope that his pursuer could grow bolder. Everything along the path had lost more and more color the farther Uli went. He was surprised, then, when he came to a pair of pillars that flanked the road, and saw that two black wolves with yellow eyes were sitting at the pillar. The two wolves stood and regarded Uli, neither raising their hackles nor crouching their bellies. Uli first thought to placate them, being the stranger, but the memory of the two false ravens was fresh, and so he returned their stare without giving ground.
No man nor woman nor wolf nor spirit walks this path unless they seek their own destruction,
said the wolves, speaking together, each word a soft, lonely howl.
Is that why you walk this path?
I seek my doom, yes, said Uli to the wolves, but I do not intend to surrender to it. I walk this path so that my doom can catch up to me, and then we shall fight and see who is the stronger.
Brave words, said the two. Perhaps this path is not for you. Beyond these gate posts, nothing waits but destruction, and the path back to the moonlit lands is not where you will find your doom. What you seek lies along the third path to lead from this place.
Uli looked to either side. I see no third path.
You would not, laughed the wolves, and there was the cry of the scavenger in their voice. But we have walked the path ourselves, and we could show you the way quite easily. We would be honored to do so, Uli Brightjaws.
Are you not bound to watch this path and warn travelers?
The path will watch itself, they replied. We were waiting for you.
Uli looked at the two a second time, and for a moment the sheen of their coats was almost the grey of the purest Fenrir blood. But then it was gone, devoured by the darkness of their pelts, and Uli knew them for what they were.
There were gatekeepers who abandoned their posts before, growled Uli. There were Fenris wolves who fell.
The two wolves drew themselves up onto two legs, into the war form.
You smell the blood of our family, Uli Brightjaws. You left our sisters' bones scattered across the road, and you hung our brothers' corpses from their own tree. We will have payment for that.
Uli rose up into his warskin and snarled his challenge in reply. The two struck as one. Perhaps they were truly brothers, or perhaps they had simply managed to learn discipline, but they fought well together. When Uli lunged at one, it jumped beyond his reach, while the other scored his back with its talons. Soon, Uli's blood was running from many wounds, and the gatekeepers were laughing, and he knew he could not win the battle in this way. So he leapt with all the strength he had, and he landed on the other side of the two. As they turned to chase him, Uli ran behind one of the pillars. One of the tainted werewolves ran around the pillar to the left, and the other ran around the pillar to the right, in order that Uli would have nowhere to flee. But that was their mistake. Uli did not flee, but instead lowered himself and charged directly at the wolf that had come around to the right. By the time its brother had fully rounded the pillar, it was too late. Uli had torn its throat out. The black wolf screamed as it saw Uli over the corpse of its brother, and it leapt at him with froth-lined jaws snapping. But now, the fight was one maddened, tainted werewolf against one Get of Fenris. The gatekeeper marked Uli several times, but never down to the bone or the vitals. Then Uli took its lower jaw in one hand and its upper jaw in the other, and he pulled. And with that done, Uli Brightjaws set the skull of each werewolf on the pillar it had guarded, and he limped on down the path. And although it would not show itself, the thing that padded after him sounded ever closer. Uli Brightjaws' wounds had not yet healed when he had reached the end of the path. The mist and shadow had grown ever deeper, until they shut out the light of Luna entirely. It was not utter blackness, it was utter gloom. The rocks and stones Uli walked across had no colour. They were grey only because no other world came closer. And the only thing that was not this same dull shade was the rift in the fabric of the ground, of the spirit world itself, a chasm longer than the horizon and blacker than the spaces between the stars. Uli Brightjaws stood on the brink of the chasm that divides the spirit world, and he knew that he had reached the end of his journey. In the abyss, strength fails. In the abyss, weakness and despair grow huge and can consume even the bravest Garou. Here, Uli Brightjaws' weakness would surely be at its most powerful. If it could show itself at all, it would do so here. And as Uli Brightjaws looked into the blackness that dropped below the heart of the spirit world, he heard the footfalls behind him, now close as a friend's arm. He heard the breath come from an unseen snout, and he knew it was his weakness come to catch him in this place. And although it was the hardest thing he had ever done, he straightened his back and turned to face it. But it was great Fenris who stood behind him. In this world, in the spirit world, in any world, there has never been a wolf as massive, as strong, as terrible as great Fenris. When he opens his jaw to devour his foes, a tall man could ride a tall horse into his throat and never had to bow his head. His eyes are yellow as newborn suns, his coat grey as despair, and as much stronger than iron as iron is stronger than glass. When he rakes the earth to mark his territory, his claws leave gouges as deep as a man's middle finger in the hardest stone. When great Fenris howls his anger to the skies, the stars shake in the heavens and weep from fright. That is what he is. He is rage. He is the first wolf. He is the one who catches comets in his teeth and gnaws them until they bleed. And now he stood before Uli Brightjaws. When he spoke, his voice was like ice, each word bitten off by a snap of his terrible jaws.
Why are you here, Uli?
Great Fenris, I am here because I fear my weakness. I came through these realms in search of it, to let it dog my heels and then to catch it and tear it apart, that I might be worthy of your favor once more. Great Fenris stood there unmoving, but thunder rolled in his throat.
You know that I can see through false strength to the flaws beneath.
I do, Great Fenris. Again the great wolf rumbled.
Do you want me to show you where your weakness lives?
Uli trembled with dread, but the words he spoke came from his soul. I do, Great Fenris. Great Fenris' eyes blazed, and his head struck forward, and Uli felt the pain of 1,000 wounds erupt in his chest. His ribs snapped like matchsticks, and the blood flew from his chest to water the stones of the abyss. Great Fenris withdrew his muzzle, all slick with Uli's heart's blood, and spat something onto the ground. Though every muscle in his body begged him to fall and die to end the pain, Uli remained on his feet and looked down at his own heart.
There is your weakness. It lies in your heart, and it is a flaw I despise. Your weakness is doubt, a flaw so enfeebling it drove you to question my judgment, to presume that I would call a weakling my child, The flaw in your spirit has brought shame upon your sept, upon your family, and upon me.
Even in the dim light of the abyss, great Fenris' teeth gleamed bright as bloody swords.
What do you have to say for yourself, Uli Brightjaws?
Though his heart lay on the ground before him, and his chest was a ruin, Uli found words. I am ashamed, great Fenris. Each breath brought fresh pain, but he continued. I measured myself by my own fears, not by my pack, not by my tribe. I thought the worst of myself, and so I thought the worst of all those who called me strong. I did not have the pride I should. I was not proud of being Fenrir. Great Fenris growled deep and low, and his eyes still burned with fury, but he did not bare his teeth.
Take up your heart, Uli Brightjaws. Eat it. Know yourself.
And he turned, and he was gone, lost in the shadows of the abyss. His sight fading, Uli groped blindly on the ground in the warm wetness of his own blood. His fingers closed on his heart, still beating. He put it to his jaws, and the smell of his heart's blood made him both sick and ravenous. And he bit into his heart, and ate it in 3 bites, and then the strength was in him once more. Uli returned to his sept on the evening of the new moon. He bowed before his jarl and told the story of his shame, and of his newfound pride. He apologized to his pack for his lack of faith, and they beat him soundly, and he came away from it laughing. He went home to his wife, and he said nothing, but nothing needed to be said. The scar on his chest never left him, and he would have been shamed and dishonored to see it go. Uli Scarheart lived well as a warrior for the rest of his days, and died as well as any Fenrir could ask. One of his children bred true, and was a fine skald and an honor to her people. When she walked among the Garu of other tribes, she was proud to say that no werewolf ever chosen by great Fenris was ever weak, even if they were fool enough to think so, once in a great while.